Drinking with Authors may contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Drinking with Authors. I am your host and author of the West Haven Undead series, Nick Savage. This episode, as with all episodes, are brought to you by our sponsors, Four Horsemen Publications. Look them up. Lots of good authors, lots of good books. But tonight, joining us is author D.A. Murray, author of Dominion Ascension. And she's going to tell us all about that because I've checked out her website, and it is pretty intense, this website that she's got going on for the book. She's got companions to go with it. She's got character breakdowns. She's got a whole shebang going with it. So she's going to tell us about that. But before she does, as I'm sitting here holding up what I'm drinking, this espresso martini and a toasted marshmallow latte, she's going to tell us all about a drink which comes from her book. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to let her do it. Take it away. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. I am actually drinking a cocktail. It's called a lunar elixir, and it's made of gin, lavender syrup, lemon juice, and creme de violette. And I love this. This is very refreshing drink, and it's actually one of about 16 different cocktails that are featured in the Dominion Ascension book. There's a companion guide that includes all of the cocktails as well as some really great culinary items. So toast to everybody today. Happy to be here.
Toast to you. Now, you said a little bit before the show that this is one of the cocktails from the book.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds very nice and floral and light because juniper itself is the base of gin. And then you have the violet in there. So are all the cocktails? Tell us about the cocktails. You know what I'm not going to assume. Tell us about these cocktails.
Well, it goes across the board. I mean, we have an amazing cocktail called Shadow and Smoke. And that was actually a cocktail that was featured at my book launch event. And that's a bourbon-based cocktail, very similar to a sidecar or an old-fashioned, just a little bit stronger, if you can imagine. And, so that one's there. And then we have some nice vodka-based drinks as well that I think for folks who really like clear liquor, there's definitely a wide range to select from. So there's also non-alcoholic, if that's your preference as well. We have some great smoothies and juices that are also featured in the book. So there's something for everybody.
Now, outside of the cocktails from the book itself is a post-apocalyptic, take it away. Take it from the post-apocalyptic. It's intense, and I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to get anything wrong.
No, not at all. Well, first thing I'll say is that Dominion Ascension is what we call a near future book, meaning that it's only taking place about 30 years into the future. And so a lot of the themes and the topics that are brought up in the book are things that you can probably relate to very well even today, things that you may have a perspective on or find particularly relevant. And it's really about a great war that takes place. And after this war, there are definitely debilitating results that impact men. And as a result of these debilitating, results, women take over, they take power. Okay. And this leads to a very definitive structure within the Dominion society where men are essentially assigned to very specific roles. Women are in power, as I just said. And I think the hallmark of this entire story is that this is predicated on a technology that really does define and evolve within the story. And so there's some really some great themes in the story around the definition of power, structure, societal structure. And then on top of some of those very lofty areas, there's also a very deep exploration of the relationship between the protagonist, who's Danny, and her mom. And so that kind of underscores the story as well. And then within all of that, there is an amazing journey that Danny takes on. And this journey takes her in a cross-country adventure where she really does learn more about Dominion. And I will say that's about all I will say for now, but it's pretty exciting. And a lot of action and adventure.
No, that is wonderful. Now, on the website, it talks about the different caste systems that the men fall into, and you brought it up briefly, with the breeder kind of being the prized, the desirable caste system to be thrown into, so they're not working utility jobs and stuff. It's been in social media a lot lately, especially on like TikTok and Facebook and stuff. This whole manosphere thing, which is just horrendously toxic. For so many, for the men involved, it's toxic. For the people who get into it, it's toxic. For people who are just watching the videos are dumber for having watched them. Is there a part of your writing when because this isn't the manosphere thing isn't new, it's just blowing up. What is there a part of your writing that was kind of like, if the manosphere takes over, this is where the men are going to go type thing? Like, is that kind of caste system a dig at those quote unquote men, or was there some other inspiration for writing that sort of power structure and decline of the male?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there was absolutely no intent on aligning with or driving them, kind of this manosphere philosophy or perspective. It was really about looking at really women, the state of women today, what women have gone through in our society, and really just taking a perspective of what if the power structure was completely flipped and women were in control and men were the ones that really had to adhere to very specific roles and rules dictated by women. So it was much more so around, what could that potentially look like? And what does that mean? The folks who have power, how they got it, how they retain it, and the folks who don't have power, how they choose to pursue their version of what they think is right, what freedom looks like for them. So it was much more philosophical from the standpoint of structure, power, freedom, and humanity. Yeah.
No. That's wonderful. It sounds like it was the perfect tool to reverse the patriarchy standards that we have and put the men in a role where they can't hold on to that power, and thus the women kind of get it or given it whether they wanted it or not, and have to then deal with that power structure, which sounds great. And I also know that you are a trailblazer of sorts within the corporate world, with a lot of the stuff like the press packet that was given to the coordinating producer and thus to me. Wonderful. Like, you have done so many things within the the world and the corporate world. Did that success that you have in there play into the writing of this book, or was that just kind of a coincidence?
Oh, no, absolutely. It was what really, I think, encouraged me to write the book, because Dominion didn't start off as a fiction novel, a dystopian fiction novel. It started off as me just writing about lessons learned in my life. And those lessons, from personal lessons, business lessons. And I decided, I really wanted to tell a story that was not just about lessons learned, but tell the story in the context of a lot of the challenges and opportunities that we are facing, in society. So I wanted it to be broader. I didn't want it to just be about me, but I wanted the lessons to be things that could be extended to this society. And so absolutely, that was the impetus for it. And then I would say, obviously, working in tech for the time that I have, technology and the role of technology relative to humanity was something I really wanted to explore. And so that was another part of it. And then, as I also mentioned earlier, there's a very strong character alignment between Danny, the protagonist, and her mother, and really how that relationship evolves. And it's really about something I think, just about any woman I think can really relate to, which is how do you go from being mommy's baby child to an adult woman in your mother's eyes? How do you start to live for the things you believe in and not the things that your mom may expect you to do or be? So there are some very human and very realistic themes that are also part of that story as well.
No, I think that underlying theme there of becoming your own while still being seen as an adult is something that many, many people struggle with. And a lot of it is, I think a generational gap and whatnot. But I think that, like you said, it's a very human kind of experience to have. So I think that's a great theme to explore in the book. Now, on your website and everything that I've been researching, you have an option for people, and this is something for authors, branching away from the book for a second, we'll still maintain on it, because this book is very interesting. You have an option to book you for book clubs.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of authors are trying to do that now. Mm-hmm. Is that something you're having success with? And if so, please share your secrets for every author out there struggling. How are you getting success with this and people, having you, whether it's via remote or in person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would say one of the things that I've been able to leverage outside of obviously friends and family, it have been, like my social channels, D.A. Murray Official on Instagram and TikTok. And I talk about the book, and I talk about the opportunity to, come to a book club and really, help kind of bring forth that Dominion experience. Because the Dominion experience, I think, for book clubs isn't just about ordering the book, reading the book, and talking about it. It's also about how do you bring all the elements of Dominion into this, this experience that you have with a group of friends. And so, to my earlier point, that's why, I have the cocktails and the culinary menu, and obviously the questions are important, as well as the glossary of terms that are used in the game. So it's really about helping book clubs really make it more about a great experience outside of just a book. So I talk a lot about the fun aspects of it and also the implications. And I think one of the things I really love to do is I like to put snippets of what people are at book clubs are saying about the book. And I think that that's been particularly successful in encouraging others to kind of try it out or say, hey, this might be a great topic for us to move along with. So I think that's been part of it. And I think the other piece of it too is just the themes are so timely and relevant that I think people just that really want to dig into it find it particularly engaging from that standpoint as well.
Now you have a companion piece that goes along with the book.
Mm-hmm.
And was that planned as you were writing the book, or was it something that as you're finishing up the book, you're like, oh, this would be, like, how did that come to be?
Yeah, I had always planned to have a book club kit and a companion guide, always, which is one of the reasons why, as I'm writing the book, I'm thinking about cool cocktails and drinks. And, I wanted it because I wanted that to be part of the overall experience. And so absolutely, it was part of it. And I think the other thing I mentioned was the glossary, because there's a number of terms I either just created and or they're just different terms that were mentioned in the book that, after a while, to be honest with you, I've been writing this book for 5 years or something like that. And after a while, you just start to forget stuff. Yeah. Like what are the 6 different, the 6 different names for, the different groups that men could be assigned to. What's that called again? How do I spell that? How did I just, I mean, so there's a lot of that goes on. So I just felt it was necessary, obviously, to have that glossary. And then, of course, the games are cool. The companion guide was really initially just structured for people who just wanted to write, just read it on their own, and just, get the book, maybe have a, nice cocktail, have a nice drink, have your glossary there, and you could just sit back and read the book. And then the expanded version of it, which was it's just for the book clubs, was just more of like, groups of people. Because I mean, I admit I love reading books on my own, and really getting into it. So it depends on what it is, but either way, it's an experience.
No. That is wonderful. Can someone enjoy the book without the companion piece?
I think so, absolutely. The glossary is in the back of the book, and that's one of the most important components of it. If you come across a term and you just don't know what it is, or in some cases, some people, could read a book for it. It could take them 2, 3, 4, 5 months. I mean, just depending on what's going on in your life or what have you. So you can forget certain terms, and it's easy to go back to the book and just kind of refresh, what does this mean or whatever. So I think that context there is really important. So yeah, it's I think it's very helpful.
No, I think readers could definitely appreciate that. You said 4 or 5 months, and well, I read a lot of literature for work, for what I do. But the last book that I read for funsies, which wasn't even a big book, it was like maybe 90,000 words, took me a year because I had no free time. So it was a couple pages here and here, and it was a good enough book. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like something that I struggled through. It was just lack of time, and I was like, oh, I wish I can get through a book that's not required reading, within 2-3 months. And I just 4 or 5 months just sounds like a dream to me right now.
Hey, you do the best you can with all of the priorities that you have to balance in your life, right? So some people can get through a book in a week. Some people, they need months, and it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you enjoy the end product. So
most of the books that I read, I get through in like 2-3 days because it's for work. Now, the Dominion world.
Yeah.
Are you going to be writing more in that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And and this is always a strange question because some authors, their brain automatically goes to series, and it's in a series, or no, standalone. You know what I'm saying? Like within the world. Are they going to be serial where you have to read book 1, 2, 3 in order?
They are. But one of the key things to note is I'm also writing book 2 such that if someone didn't read book 1, or maybe it's been a year since you read book 1, it's still standalone within bringing all the relevant context to that current book without feeling like, oh my God, I got to go back and read. They will stand on their own, but they also will be, there'll be continuity of storyline.
Okay, no, that is wonderful because I do the same thing with mine where they're serial. And some people are like, can't you write standalone? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I need like 3 to 5 books to write a story. But it's nice to know that I'm not the only one because a lot of my author friends are like, oh, I just write like 5 books in the world, but they're all standalone. And I'm like, that's just weird to me.
Yeah. Or, how many people want to read, a 1,000-page book? I don't know. I don't know about you. I don't have time for that. So
like you gotta break it down into smaller chunks and stuff for them and then give them like a nice series. But no, that's just the way I write. And our minds apparently are on that same wavelength of, write a series in order. And I'm trying to break away from that, see how it goes. And it might kill my career or make my career. Who knows? But it'll be fun. Can we talk about the corporate side of things that you do? Because you seem like you're breaking glass ceilings, you're paving trails and stuff, blazing trails. You leave behind that smoke fire. I'm just going to mix my metaphors here, man.
That's fine.
That's why we have editors, so they can say, you messed that up. What do you do on that end of things that made you want to write books, or was it nothing you do on that end of things and writing was always kind of something on this, pecking at you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing most of my life. So, when it came down to thinking about the world and what it could look like in the future, I think it would be pretty strange not to have technology in some way, shape, or form, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I guess it also depends on what that story looks like. I mean, you could have everything completely just explode and you're starting all the way from scratch there, like there's all kinds of ways you can take it. But anyway, I think that, working in tech, I think if anything, it's really helped me form a very clear and definitive point of view about, technology and humanity and the role that each play in supporting and aligning with each other. And then there's also the issue around what do the guardrails, what do they need to look like? What could they look like? How can they evolve together? That's the kind of perspective that I have, working in tech and really seeing how it is enabling companies, enabling individuals personally and professionally. And I think all of those things are incredibly positive and generate a lot of value. I think at the same time, it's important, I think, for humanity to be very, for tech, I should say, to catch up to humanity. And there are, I think, very distinctive guardrails around how we as humans can think about and relate to something that has the potential to extend beyond things we can't even imagine at this point. So
I don't want to potentially open a can of worms, but I'm going to ask anyways because it's relevant. What is your thought on AI and everything happening nowadays, and more specifically, generative AI and everything happening nowadays?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I will say as a tech executive, my opinions are strictly my own personal opinions and not the opinions of the company that I work for.
But wait, actually, you know what? Let me stop you there only because I'm going to give you an out right now because I did not think about that. I am 100% self-employed. Anything I say is a reflection of me and everything I do.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, if you don't want to answer that based on the fact that your opinions may differ from your company and you want me to move on, I will. I did not mean to throw you under the bus or potentially throw you.
You weren't throwing me on the bus. What I was doing is setting up for it's very general.
Okay.
Like you see in the world. Yeah. I mean, know.
Yeah. Then please continue. I do apologize about breaking the.
No, it's fine. I mean, just to kind of double down on what I've already said, which is it's an incredible enabler, right? The efficiencies that people can experience, in terms of utilizing AI for business, or even just on the personal level in terms of finding information or being more efficient about how they use the information that they find, or spending more time on the analytics versus all of the aggregation of data or information. So there's so many ways I think that that AI can be tremendously beneficial. And there are cost savings opportunities across a number of different ways that AI can be used. So there's no, I think those are the things that we're discovering and getting better at and understanding. So I think it's incredible. But I think at the same time, I think, again, as something that is, human led, we have to also understand how choices impact, our people in the future. There's a legacy to every choice that you make, positive and potentially negative. So I think it's important that we're having these conversations now and really trying to understand how we want to evolve with something that has, has so much potential to do good, but also can also evolve beyond maybe what we imagine it can be. So that's kind of my perspective on it for now.
No. That is a very even keel kind of perspective, which I understand. Some people may look at it and go, but you have a career outside of writing that you need to keep in mind when you speak on these things. So I definitely will keep my opinions on AI to myself right now because I don't want to say something that will get you in trouble. But that being said, you currently live in the Windy City of Chicago.
Yeah.
And are originally from not there.
That is correct. I'm originally from Northern California.
California. Okay. In my mind, I was going, it was either California or Arizona, and I couldn't remember, but the A was in there. Northern California. So you're far away from the glitz and the glam of Hollywood where you grew up and everything like that. You were way north in almost ski resort region. If you get high enough, they have some ski resorts. And now you're in Chicago. How do you like the food?
Well, I love the food in Chicago. I also love the food in California. I lived in Northern California, so the San Francisco Bay Area. And
that my geography is horrible. I thought San Francisco was still southern or central or something like that. That's northern.
No, it's northern. But I also went to college at UCLA, so I was in Southern Cal too.
Okay.
So I love the food in California, but I also love it here in Chicago. It's amazing. You can get just about anything you want, which is fantastic.
I know you were expecting a very hard-hitting, deep philosophical question with that, but the food. I'm from Chicago, and now that I live in California, every time I interview someone who's in Chicago, I have to ask them because I have to live vicariously through them because California has good food, and I've been to California, and the seafood and the local cuisine and everything is wonderful in California, but the hot dogs and the pizza in Chicago are just unmatched. And New York pizza withstanding on that because they're apples and oranges or different breeds of apples. Do you have a favorite shop that you like to grab food from?
Well, I will say here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love seafood, and there is an amazing seafood restaurant in Des Plaines. There's also a location in Wheeling. It's called Boston Seafood Market. Okay. And the food is incredible. I mean, everything's fresh. They're a distributor as well as a restaurant. So the seafood is incredibly fresh, and it's an amazing place to go. Highly recommend it. Coming from California, because I've been here in Chicago, oh my God, like over 20 years. Okay. So when I first moved to Chicago, one of the things I really did miss the food in California because California, everything was so nuanced and still is. I love Asian cuisine, love it. So, I was eating a number of things that weren't even here in Chicago yet. I really enjoyed things like Korean barbecue and just all these incredibly different delicacies that I could find in California that weren't here in Chicago yet. And I think that that's evolved over time, which is great. Things have become much more melded and there's just a lot more cultural or multicultural influences in the food here in Chicago, which is great. I wasn't a huge pizza hot dog person in California because I think I might have been a little bit more on the healthy side of things. But when I came here, I loved the pizza here, although I am a thin crust person. That's my thing.
Thin crust is the other Chicago pizza. Everybody thinks deep dish, and I'm a deep dish guy, but only from Lou Malnati's. And Gino's East. I'm not a fan of Giordano's. I love Lou's and I love Gino's. But if you're going thin crust, Rosati's all the way.
Awesome. Well, I will double click on that and say one I would recommend highly is Peace Pizza So Piece.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
okay.
like Lincoln Park. Amazing thin crust pizza as well. So you can find, but this is the wonderful thing about Chicago. You can find just about anything you want.
Anything.
Anything, which is fantastic.
I will say this: if the corporation you work for ever says we want to transfer you to Florida, tell them no. You will never enjoy eating again.
Oh, I will keep that in mind.
I am 1000% not a fan of Florida food in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Now, that being said, I'm in the Orlando area. You go down to Miami, the Cuban food and everything down there is a completely different monster.
Mhm.
But the Orlando area, 98% of the food is just not up to par what you are used to now. If you are a seafood fan and you're in Wheeling, check out a place called Bob Chin's.
I have been to Bob Chin's multiple times. But I will say that Boston seafood market is on the level of a Bob Chin's in terms of just availability and variety, and but it oh my gosh, amazing.
Next time I'm down there, I'm going to have to check out the Boston seafood market. Yeah,
got to check it out. Yeah. One of my favorite places.
Now, bringing it back to the writing, because
yes.
as much as I love talking about food, I bring up the Chicago. Want to get back to the writing. You said you're working on sequels. Are they already in the works? Like, have you put pen to paper, or are you still plotting and planning?
Oh, I've already put pen to paper, so to speak. I mean, the detailed draft of book 2 was written in 2024.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of, kind of continuing to write the critical scenes. And then, of course, the entire process of editing and working with my editor and working with the timeline, all of that stuff. So, but yeah, definitely critical. At least for me, my writing style is to start with a very detailed outline, and then I'm just writing scenes.
Yeah. I am with you on that. I'm very much a plotter and writer. And how do you deal with it because you are a very detailed plotter planner, when you come across something and you're writing the scenes and you get to a spot where you're like, oh, shoot, this isn't going to connect from here to here where I thought it was. How do you approach that?
I've had that experience. I need to add a scene. I need to add something. I have to add something there.
Right here.
Yeah. I got to add something to the story. And also when I write, there are also certain areas, in the story where I say, aha, let me leave this for now and come back. But this is something I can use. You know what I mean? So there are areas within the story where I can slot things in depending on how things are evolving, because things never end up exactly the way you initially plan them. As you're writing, you're going to be, interested in something else, an idea is going to really come in and you're going to think, oh, I need to change these things. But having the fundamental foundation of where things are and the things you want to really focus on, and what are those things that you want people walking away with and thinking about, those things don't change for me.
No. Those should always stay there. And I think any writer should keep them, there where they're at. Have you ever written, because things do change as you're writing, and I know some authors will have, this is the end to the book, and I will force the story to end there. Have you ever, you're laughing, have you ever gotten to where like, oh, this is where I think the book's going to end, and it's, I don't want to say somewhere drastically different or wildly different, but not where you thought the book was going to end?
No, I haven't had that experience yet.
Okay.
But it's early. It's early. So
So you were able to get Dominion Ascension to end where you needed it to end.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I knew exactly where it was going to end. But at the same time, you got to be willing to admit to yourself if something doesn't sink in right or make sense, or, you know what I mean? You have to be the writer, and you can take that writer perspective, but you also have to take that reader perspective. So, yeah, 100%.
And how much influence does your editor have over your writing?
Quite a bit. We've had some very colorful exchanges, verbal exchanges. But nonetheless, it's all done with the objective of bringing forth the best possible product, right?
Yes.
And that's how you have to kind of think about it. And I wouldn't want somebody who was like a yes person and agreed with everything. I mean, that's not what I'm looking for. So
I think that's a very healthy outlook to have, because you don't want someone who's just going to pat you on the back and say, good job. You need someone who's going to make you better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And who does your cover design? Is it you or does someone else?
My publisher. Yes.
Your publisher did that. Mm-hmm. And how much input did you have when they presented you with the cover?
Quite a bit, actually. They had me, put together a design brief. And so if there were ideas that I had up front and a position I had about something and different, kind of graphical, or images that I thought were really critical, I was able to just communicate all of that to them. So the cover is, it's the butterfly and it is crushed. And the butterfly was very important and central to the book because that's part of the Dominion flag. And, for a butterfly, it's really about showing, just being reborn and taking this completely different and new identity. So there was a lot of, thematic, reasons for wanting to go with a certain type of, graphic.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they made it look amazing. If I don't say so myself, I loved it.
No, it's a beautiful cover, and the reception of the book seems to be very positive. I like to look things up when I get my information on stuff. So I looked it up, and great reviews on Goodreads and everything like that. So congratulations on that. And a book launch party is something that I have yet to do for myself. So we're going to be talking about that after we're done.
Okay. Here. Sure.
Actually, no. Let's talk about that right here. Screw it. We can do it. We got time. Was the book launch something your publisher did for you, or you were like, I'm doing this for myself?
Yeah, I mean, it was something my publisher had suggested, and I was a little unsure at first because, in all honesty, I mean, you're exhausted by the time you get to the, kind of the point where you're ready to launch. You're just exhausted physically. And there was so much that had to be done in preparation for the launch. And so I was a little skeptical. Oh my God, do I really want to do this now? Can I just you know what I mean? Like, honestly, because there's still quite a bit of work that needs to happen. And all I can say is I am so incredibly glad that I did. It was probably the most, incredibly reaffirming, positive experience that I've had. And there's something about people coming out and just celebrating this incredibly long journey. Yeah. And there's something about seeing something that was nothing more than an idea in your head at one point actually be this thing that people are talking about and looking at. And it was amazing. And just all of the offshoots of it. It wasn't just the book. I mean, it was like, the companion guide and the book club kit and the AI, characters and the AI journey. And, it took on a life of its own. Seriously. Yeah. And so I was so glad I did it. And I, to this day, I still have, friends and family and folks who said, oh my God, that was like the most amazing book launch party I've ever been to. And the drinks were incredibly strong, but I loved it,
And they were all drinks from your world.
From the book. Yeah. And I had characters, Danny and Robbie, the two characters from the book. I had them walking around, actors walking around, kind of engaging with the guests and stuff. And talking about the book, taking pictures, and it was just a lot of fun, to see, the breeder with like, the chokehold.
Yeah.
And all, just all that cool stuff, right? And but yeah, I'm really glad I did it. Really glad I did it.
So here's going to be a obvious, very softball question for you. Do you recommend it for other authors?
I think it depends on what your objective is. I mean, honestly, for me, I really do see my journey as an author to be just a long-term one. This
Yeah.
is just the beginning. And quite honestly, getting to the launch is fantastic, but there's a ton that needs to happen even after the launch.
Yeah.
So I think, if the question is around like economically, could you have taken those dollars and possibly apply them into other things, like more PR activities beyond, I mean, this was a huge PR activity, but I guess there could have been things like, digital marketing activations or ads or things like that. And the practical side of me was like, oh, but I could be doing this. But there's something about the need to have to celebrate what you've done. Seriously, because it's an incredible feat, I think, to do something like this, to write a book that that was years in the making, and that is really something you believe is, such an incredible representation of the story that you want to put out in the world.
Yeah.
And so I don't do enough to celebrate myself. And that was a moment where I really got to do it. So, like I said, I think as a writer, you have to pick and choose your priorities and what's most important. But I really wanted and I needed to do this book launch because it really fortified my my perception of myself as a writer, and really helped me engage with people who just loved the book. Yes. And could, that's important. You need to hear those kinds of things, especially when you're new. I mean, you want to hear, and don't get me wrong, I've heard from people who didn't like the book, and that's okay. Any artist is going to have people that love what you do, and there's going to be people who don't like what you do. They love the painting, they love your singing, they love your dancing, or they're thinking, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever, encountered. And, I think as a writer, you have to be willing to accept that and know that the long struggle, the haul, once you, or even before you've launched your book, while you're launching your book and afterwards, is to find your people. The people who can really appreciate the message and really appreciate the way that you convey the message. Those are my people, and that's who I'm writing for. And it's okay if someone doesn't agree with something or, whatever, that's okay. Yeah. That's the beauty of diversity, right? So have at it.
No, I love it. Let's help find more of your people to celebrate you and who you are. Tell us where we can find you on social media, on the website, where we can buy your books. Give us the whole 9 yards.
Okay. All right. So social media channels, you can find me at D.A. Murray Official, and that is on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. You can also go to my author site where my socials are also included, among other things. And that is at damurrayofficial.com. And on the author site, you can see all the amazing, like interviews and news and all the things that are happening since the book has been released. You can also learn more about the characters in the book through a really amazing AI journey. That's also presented there, an experience that's there. There's the companion kit we talked about, the book club kit. And there's also just a lot of great content around very specific topics that are part of the overall Dominion theme, right? So you'll just kind of see some of that. So I think that's a lot of fun as well. And you can see a little bit about me and my background, so to see kind of where this crazy story came from. And I would say those are kind of the main things. The other thing you'll find on the author site is all of the places where you can actually acquire the book are on there. So there's Amazon.com, bookshop.org, bookshop.org, I should say, barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com, all these great places. And also there's some bookstores that are also carrying the book. So yeah, lots of opportunity to find out more and see what you like.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. If you had one piece of advice that you could give writers, what would that be?
Sure. Really understand what is your end goal, right? Are you investing time to write and publish a book? Maybe it's it could be a hobby. It could be just something you've always wanted to do and you don't quite know yet what you want to do with it. But what I would say, if you have any aspirations of wanting to invest in all, the writing and all of the activities that go along with growing your relationship with readers, etc., make sure you understand the business side of publishing. It's not enough just to write. Make sure you understand the different publishing models that are out there: traditional publishing, self-publishing, hybrid publishing, self-directed publishing. There's so many different models out there. Make sure you understand the economics of publishing. Make sure that you also understand, how do you evolve your craft? Because I think that's another important thing. It doesn't just start and stop. You really have to be thinking potentially about how you get better at your writing. And there's opportunity for every single writer to just get better. So those would be the things I would really recommend: is understand the business of writing, if that's where you're going with it, and just continue to invest in your, in understanding and learning.
Thank you so much. That is some good advice right there, because a lot of people forget about the business side of things and just focus on the creative.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you about your book, Dominion Ascension, which of course can be bought everywhere that she said. To everyone, I'm not going to list them all again because they can rewind it 20 seconds. For everyone who tuned in to watch on YouTube and to listen on all the podcast channels, thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank our sponsor once more, for Horseman Publications, for making this happen. If it weren't for them, I'd be talking to myself, and that's just kind of strange. And check out her book, Do It All. And until next time, remember, it costs nothing to be kind. I will see you all soon. Stick around.
Thank you for listening to Drinking with Authors. Join us next time for another fun conversation with an author over drinks.